Hello team. In this we're going to talk briefly about how to manage virtual networks. So virtual networks in the cloud get very complex. So three factors bring forth this complexity. One is the complex interconnection among switches. So data center topologies are very complex. So we have multi-paths between any two destinations, and we have load balancing between the switches. So there are a lot of links, a lot of paths, and this topology is complex. So any system that keeps track of where packets should go needs to consider this complex topology. Another factor is that we have multiple layers of virtualization. So we have virtual machines inside servers, we have hardware switches, and we have virtual switches, we have packets going over the network, and then we have encapsulation around these packets. So we have multiple layers of virtualization in multiple aspects of cloud computing, and we have to manage to make sure that everything works correctly and integrates well. And finally, entities like virtual machines and containers can be placed on any server in a data center, and they can also migrate from one server to another. So these networks are not static, they are very dynamic. So the endpoints keep moving around and the networks have to be reconfigured frequently. So there's no single established solution for managing these complex networks, and there are several research papers describing solutions that large cloud providers use. So the main idea is that we will need some routing protocol to decide where the packets are going. So some solutions use link state protocols, some other solutions use policy-based protocols like BGP. So sometimes existing protocols are reused to compute routes within data centers. But more recently, software-defined networks have seen strong adoption. And the main difference between software-defined networks and the classical approach is that in software-defined networks, we have a centralized controller that maintains the state of the network. And it uses this global view of the network to configure routing rules on the physical and virtual switches. And one protocol that we can use to configure the routes on physical and virtual switches is OpenFlow, but other solutions are also possible. The main difference is this idea of having a centralized controller that's usually built in software, so it's easier to update and easier to change and easier to write plugins for, so it's much easier to extend. So we can extend the functionality of how the network operates and how it's managed by just changing the centralized controller. So this is the main idea behind software-defined networks. So we have a lot more flexibility when we are configuring the routing devices and also when we're setting up the virtual networks.